What is up, you guys? Teller checking in, and it's hump day, so you know you guys got another free play coming your guys' way. Coming in with a perfect 2-for-2 record so far with these free plays that I've been giving you guys. Last week, we cashed in on the 5-unit -190 play on Trevor Peek to defeat Eric Gonzalez. And for those of you guys that didn't like that line, if you thought it was too high, I was very clear. I said to shop the inside the distance on Trevor Peek, which you could have got at a -135 line. That cashes as well. Trevor Peek was going to be way too much for Eric Gonzalez. I told you guys, listen, the game is ruthless, and in the near future, I might look to fade Trevor Peek. He's a little bit too wild on the feet, but in that specific matchup, it was a clear fade on Eric Gonzalez. And let me say this as well. Trevor Peek does some things very well. I do believe that he has a great gas tank, even though we still haven't seen him really go deep into his fights. He's obviously built from a different cloth. We talked about the fact he's an ex-addict. I mean, this guy is really obsessed with the fight game right now. You can just see it on his face. And he goes in there and straight up looks to terminate his opposition. And you got to respect the work that Trevor Peek's putting in just from a sheer entertainment standpoint. He goes out there and looks to put a show on for us, and you got to appreciate it. Again, a perfect 2-for-2 with these free plays coming at you guys. I'm looking to make it a perfect 3-for-3 as we move forward to the big UFC 285 card. Guess what fight we're talking about today? We're talking about the Mammoth Heavyweight Championship match between Jon Jones and Ciryl Gane. I see some value on the board. Let's get over to this fight.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
So one of the true GOATs of mixed martial arts, Jon Jones, looks to make his long-awaited return back to the octagon this Saturday. It's been 3 years to date since we've last seen Jon Jones perform in a mixed martial arts fight. And let's also take into consideration he's coming into this fight with some major question marks. We already talked about the long layoff, but let's talk about the fact that this is the first time we're going to be seeing him step onto the scales above 206 pounds as he makes his heavyweight debut. We also have to take into consideration that he's coming off 2 questionable performances, in particularly in his last fight against Dominic Reyes, where there's a good amount of people out there that believe Reyes should have got the nod in that fight. Now, whether or not you agree with that, I think at the very least we can all agree that it was a very close match against the guy in Dominic Reyes who fell off a cliff after that fight. He hasn't gone out there and done anything close to impressive since that fight. So his stock's been very low. And when you analyze that fight against Jon Jones, I think that there are some major question marks. Now, what about Jon Jones's most recent fight before the Dominic Reyes fight, where he took on Thiago Santos? Check the scorecards on that fight. It was a split decision. In fact, some people had Thiago Santos winning that fight as well. Obviously, one of the judges did. Now, before we move on, are there any other question marks that we could think of in regards to Jon Jones? Yeah, I got one more. How about the fact that ever since USADA stepped up their testing, Jon Jones has really never looked the same, besides his one fight against Alexander Gustafsson, where he did look great in the rematch there. But when you look at the vast majority of his fights since USADA really stepped it up, there's been some very questionable performances. Let's also mention his return fight against Ovince St. Preux, a fight that played out very closely. And again, OSP, another fighter that has really fell off a cliff since that fight as well. Or you could really say it's just really never been on that level to begin with. Now, what about Ciryl Gane? In my opinion, Gane is the best striker we've ever seen in the heavyweight division. I mean, you can argue a couple other names up there with him, but from a technical standpoint, it doesn't get any better than Gane. As far as his athleticism goes, per his size, I would say that he's right at the top of the heap as well. Those are some major attributes that a fighter brings to the table when we're talking about a heavyweight match. In regards to his Francis Ngannou match, he was 1 round away from becoming the heavyweight champion of the world. He did make a mental error in there when he dropped back for that leg lock on Francis Ngannou, giving up position. Remember, that fight did boil down to that 5th round, and I do believe that that mistake cost him the championship. Understand that that was a learning experience for Ciryl Gane. We know that he came into the sport of MMA with a striking background. He's working on his overall game, and I do expect that we'll see the best version of Gane going into this match here. With that being said, can we actually take a second to analyze the resume of Ciryl Gane in regards to the level of grapplers that he has faced off with in the UFC thus far, or throughout his entire mixed martial arts career, if you want to go there. We already talked about the victory that he had over Tai Tuivasa in his last fight. Tai is a striking-based opponent. Before that, we talked about the Francis Ngannou loss that he took. And in fact, the real reason why he ended up taking the loss in that fight was based on his grappling against a guy in Francis Ngannou who was not known for his grappling, to say the least. Before that, victories over Derek Lewis, striker, Alexander Volkov, striker, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, striker, JDS, Junior Dos Santos, striker, Tanner Boser, striker, Dontel Mays, whatever you want to call him, not a grappler. I mean, when you really analyze who he's been facing off with in the UFC, you see that he has never been tested against a legitimate wrestler or grappler. Now, Jon Jones is going to be a lot more than just competent in that field. In my opinion, Jon Jones is one of the greatest wrestlers slash grapplers that we've ever seen in the sport. He's very similar to George St. Pierre in the sense that he didn't have a prolific background in any specific grappling discipline like wrestling or jiu-jitsu. He was a small school wrestler, but as soon as he came into the sport of MMA, he learned how to implement that style just as good as anybody. We take a look at the numbers here. Jon Jones with the 44% takedown accuracy throughout his UFC career, solidifying about half of the attempts that he has taken. That's a solid number there. As far as his defense goes, a 95% takedown defensive rate. Now, that's not really going to come into play here because I don't see Ciryl Gane shooting whatsoever. Gane is going to strictly want to keep this fight on the feet where he could try to strike from range. But again, when we're talking about the takedown defense from Ciryl Gane, only a 55% takedown defense. But most importantly, in that Francis Ngannou fight, when they went to the deep waters, he only had a 20% takedown defensive rate throughout that fight. And that's the major question mark to me, because I think when this fight gets to the nitty gritty, I think that Jon Jones is really going to take this fight over with his grappling as it goes to the later rounds. Also, take into consideration, we've seen Jon Jones go to the deep waters, and we've seen him really thrive there. You think about the Alexander Gustafsson fight the first time around. If you guys haven't seen that, run the tape back there. Jon Jones showed to have the heart of a lion, and we've seen that throughout his career. Even after that, we've seen him dig deep in the Daniel Cormier fights and a couple other fights as well. So I'm really thinking Jon Jones is going to take over late in this fight. It's also worth mentioning that Jon Jones will bring in a 3.5 reach advantage. Both men are 6'4". We're expecting Jon Jones to weigh in roughly around 240 pounds or so, almost the same weight as Ciryl Gane. So even though he's bumping up in weight, he's a legit heavyweight fighter going into this fight. But take into consideration that reach advantage that I'm talking about there. And as far as the leg reach, Jon Jones will have a 3-inch leg reach as well. He likes to throw those tricky kicks from range. I think that he'll be able to keep Gane at bay, which is a similar tactic that Gane likes to use. But eventually Jones, avoiding that danger there, will look to set up those takedowns that we talked about. That's how I see Jones taking over this fight. So where are we going with our action for this match here? Guess what? I got another 5-unit play that I'm throwing towards you guys. That's the third 5-unit play in a row, and it's going to cash. I was able to lock in Jon Jones at a -160 betting line. Think about this. When's the last time you've seen a -160 betting line next to Jon Jones's name? You take a look at some of the recent lines that we've seen next to his name in his recent matches. Going into that Thiago Santos fight, he was roughly a -850 favorite. In the Anthony Smith fight, he was a -900 favorite. Against OSP in his return fight there, he was a -675 favorite. I mean, throughout his career, he's been a big-time favorite. We all know that. I think that this is a bargain line, grabbing him anywhere from -160, even up to a -185 favorite, so somewhere in that range. If you guys saw my full card prediction video, I mentioned that I did expect action to come in on Jon Jones throughout the week, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. You're roughly seeing him right around that -170 line right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see him settle in right around a -210, 220 favorite. We talked about the fact Jon Jones is a big name in the game. You're going to see a lot of coverage on him on ESPN and all these major sports networks, and I think that that's going to push towards his line moving that direction. So, But again, anything you can grab from that minus 150 line all the way up to a minus 190 line, I think that that's a bargain line. We're talking about one of the GOATs of the game, and that will bring me to my closing thoughts on this free play. Who is your GOAT of mixed martial arts? I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a different answer. I truly believe that there's 4 GOATs in the sport of mixed martial arts. I really think it's hard to say that there's one GOAT because each of these men have done things a little bit differently. Some men have done certain things better than others. Some fighters have done other things better than others. I think that the 4 real GOATs of the fight game are Jon Jones, Anderson Silva. When you really think about what he was doing in his prime in the game, I'm not really holding him under the fire just based on the fact that he had a desire to continue to fight late in his career and he took some losses. He could have retired early like Khabib did and really had a more prolific mixed martial arts career, in my opinion, if you think about the finishes and all that. Khabib's in the mix as well, and then my boy George St. Pierre. I'm saying that all 4 of those men are quite evenly GOATs in their own right. But who is your GOAT of mixed martial arts? As we close down this video, I would really like to know who you guys think the GOAT is of mixed martial arts, and I'll go through the comment section below. I'll tally up the votes, and we'll see who you guys believe is the GOAT of mixed martial arts. Now that's going to wrap up another free play coming your guys' way. Please do me a big favor and like this video, subscribe to the channel, catch me on all my social media. If you guys do that, I'll be able to continue to give you guys these free plays. So if you guys like them coming your way, I need that little bit of help, please. Go help me out there. I'm trying to grow this channel out. You guys know this free play is going to cash, so make sure you book it. If you guys are looking for my entire slate for UFC 285, reach out to me. You can reach out to me through my social media or shoot me an email at mmafortuneteller@gmail.com, and we can work something out. I'm looking to have a huge night for UFC 285. I'm excited for the card. I know you guys are as well. You guys have an amazing rest of your fight week. I will catch up with you guys this Saturday. Signing out, Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.